Hello everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Cyrus Jansen. I'm an American expat that has been living abroad for the past 14 years, 10 of those being in Greater China. And in today's video, I want to talk to you specifically about the 2020 US presidential election. We're going to talk specifically about Donald Trump, his actions leading up to and during this presidential election. We're going to talk specifically about Joe Biden, what a new Joe Biden presidency is going to mean for the country of America. But most importantly, we're also going to talk about what does a Joe Biden presidency mean for the countries of the United States and China, and how will this affect the relationship between these two great superpowers. Now in today's video, this is going to be a very similar format to what I did last week. Last week I told you that I'm going to just sit down, I'm going to hit that record button, I'm just going to have a casual conversation with you. I'm not going to edit this video, we're going to do one take, and I simply just want to share with you some of the thoughts that I've been experiencing and really what I'm feeling as an American that has been living abroad for a long time, but that now has a new president-elect. I want to share with you my thoughts, and I also really want to highlight what I think is going to happen in the future with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the new leaders of the United States. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about in this video is specifically Donald Trump and his actions leading up to this 2020 presidential election, and then what he did during the election and these past few days afterwards. Now, the interesting thing with Donald Trump is that months before this election and weeks before, even days before, he consistently said that, the election system is rigged, there's a tremendous amount of fraud involved, and he always questioned the legitimacy of this actual election process. And it's quite interesting because obviously he was the big winner of this very system in 2016. And this is really important to me because, the United States government, and for example, Secretary of State Michael Pompeo has continuously said that China is the greatest threat to America's democracy moving forward. Now, many of you that follow this channel, you know that I do not believe in that statement. I do not believe that China is the greatest threat to America's democracy. And what I've said is I think that actually, Donald Trump and actions like this is actually posing the greatest threat to America's democracy. When you have the current president of the United States coming out weeks before the election and saying this election is fraud, there's going to be a tremendous amount of, all of these problems that are going to happen, this really questions your entire process and your entire democracy as a nation. And this is really a difficult point, for people outside of America to understand. For example, the United States, they're very keen on spreading the United States-style democracy around the world. For example, Michael Pompeo, he's been very clear that he wants to bring democracy to China. But when China is looking at America and they're looking at this very complicated system, they're looking at the chaos that is ensuing from this election, again, China has no interest in adapting American-style democracy. China has a very unique system for them, but I think also when you look at other countries, let's forget about China, let's look at Europe or even Canada, Australia, other Western countries around the world. They don't like to see that either. They don't like to see Donald Trump and the way that he is acting about this. I mentioned this before on my YouTube channel. Watch the movie The Social Dilemma. It gives a fascinating insight into how social media really plays a pivotal role in developing this divide that is now very big in America. I think the important thing that we really need to realize is that, Donald Trump actually received 70 million votes in this election. The Republicans actually ran a very good 2020 election campaign. The previous record was 69.5 million votes. That was by President Obama in 2008. So Donald Trump beat the record. However, Joe Biden also beat the record, and in fact, he also beat Donald Trump by over 4 million votes in the popular vote. So actually, I think both candidates ran a very good campaign. I think it's just very difficult for Trump supporters to ultimately accept defeat. We know that Donald Trump, he does not like to lose. He probably doesn't like to lose more than anybody in the world. So this has been very difficult for him. I think Donald Trump has lost a tremendous amount of face. Before this election, Donald Trump came out and said, Joe Biden is a very weak candidate. He's probably the worst person to run for president. There's no way that I'm going to lose to Joe Biden. And obviously, Donald Trump has had to eat those words. he has lost a lot of face in the American public because, he has lost to Joe Biden. But the reality is this is the beautiful thing about American democracy, is that everybody gets a chance to have their voice heard. They get to speak their mind. And the reality is that more people want Joe Biden than they want Donald Trump. And I think it's very interesting. We see Donald Trump's, his own house is divided. Donald Trump's daughter, his wife, have both talked to Donald Trump, asked him, Donald, I think it's time that you concede this election. Meanwhile, you have, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. both saying, no, we need to fight this. We need to continue this fight. So it's going to be very interesting to see over the next 2 months, what policies is Donald Trump going to pass that are going to make Biden's team have an even more difficult path moving forward. We call this a lame duck president. That is the term that we use in America to describe a president who is still in office but has effectively lost the next election. So Donald Trump is a lame duck president now. He has essentially, just under 70 days left in office, but he does have a lot of time to make a lot of policies and potentially, make it very difficult for Biden team moving forward. Now, let's go ahead and transition into the next topic, and that is going to be Joe Biden, and what do I feel, for a Joe Biden presidency moving forward. Now, I think the interesting thing about Joe Biden, and I'm going to relate this specifically to China, as many of you know, we vlog about China on this channel, and I think that Joe Biden is actually a very interesting candidate, to be working with China in the future. There's a couple things that I want to highlight from what he said before the election. The first is that Joe Biden came out and he said, out of all the Western politicians in the world right now, I have spent the most amount of time with President Xi Jinping of China. During Joe Biden's 8 years as vice president, he made many frequent trips to China. He met with Xi Jinping at many of these world summits. He spent a considerable amount of time with Xi Jinping. In fact, it was actually Joe Biden that was talking to Xi Jinping about having China get involved in the Paris Agreement to work on climate change. So Joe Biden has talked to, Xi Jinping a lot. He has spent a lot of time with him. In addition to that, Joe Biden was asked this question just a few days before the election. Is China the greatest threat to America moving forward? And I was very interested to hear his answer. And Joe Biden said, I do not believe that China is the greatest threat moving forward. I actually believe that it is Russia. Russia is our greatest threat. However, I do believe that China is our greatest competitor. So I think these comments, are very good, for the future of the United States and China relations. I think you're going to have a president, Joe Biden, who is going to want to work with China and is certainly going to be, we know what we're going to get with Joe Biden as president. He's certainly going to be more polished. He's going to be more diplomatic. He's going to be more presidential. And I think that, he is going to be willing to sit down with China and have these discussions moving forward. Now, I was looking very closely at what China was saying in relation to this presidential election. For many of you that have been following, what China has said, for the most part, they have been largely very muted on this subject. Just before the presidential election, China officially came out and stated that they support whoever wins the presidential election in America, and that China is going to move forward on their same policies. They want to make sure that, they look forward to sitting down with whoever is the leader. That, of course, is Joe Biden now, but they're looking forward to sitting down. They want to find a way that both countries can work together. China is willing to work with America, and they realize that there are certainly going to be differences between the United States and China, but they're very optimistic that hopefully they can sit down, find a path that both of these countries can, move forward with. Now, I have actually had a lot of people talk to me and say, Cyrus, what's interesting is that Joe Biden has called Xi Jinping a thug. He has said that he's a thug and that he's going to be very tough on, President Xi. And I think what's interesting is we saw that comment during, a debate. And I also wonder a little bit how much of that is truth, or was that just Joe Biden kind of playing the game that you need to play in U.S. politics right now? For example, we know that, becoming very hard on China has been something that we've seen from both the Republican and the Democrat Party. For instance, we know that Donald Trump, Secretary of State Michael Pompeo, they have been very hard on China. United States and China have been locked in this trade war for the past few years. So I think when Joe Biden was making his run as a presidential candidate, there's no way for Joe Biden to come out and say, you know what, I want to sit down with President Xi and work out our differences. I want to build a stronger relationship with China. There's no way that Joe Biden could have said that. If he were to say that, he probably would have lost the election, because becoming harder on China is something that was bipartisan. It was really the Republicans and the Democrats that, both took this stance. However, now that he has, won the presidency and that he will become the president in January, 2021, I think that we're going to see Joe Biden certainly wanting to work with China. And one of the things that I really like is that when you saw Joe Biden give his acceptance speech and really address the nation, one of the banners that was on the back of his backdrop was, the American people have voted in science. They have voted in truth. And Joe Biden obviously is a big believer in science. He's a big believer in climate change and what we need to do for this environment. I thought it was very interesting that, China's President Xi Jinping has come out and he said that he wants to have China to be carbon neutral by the year 2060. And what Joe Biden's response was is he says, well, under a Joe Biden presidency, I want America to be carbon neutral by 2050. And this is the type of competition that I am eagerly wanting to see the United States and China get into. Let's imagine that if the United States and China could actually battle each other on becoming the first carbon neutral, world superpower. I think that would be an amazing race to have between these two countries, because ultimately, like I've really preached on this entire channel, is that when the United States and China work together, the entire world is going to benefit. And this, of course, is a great example of that. If China and the United States could actually work to becoming carbon neutral, China and the United States are the biggest polluters in the world, there's no doubt about that. But if they became carbon neutral, and you know what, if China and the United States actually work together on this initiative, I bet you they could actually both do it by 2040. I think you could see a tremendous amount of innovation, of sharing of technology between these two countries. I think that it'd be an amazing thing for China and the United States to work towards. So these are all things that, I'm definitely optimistic and hopeful for, for a Joe Biden presidency. Now, I will say that I don't believe that Joe Biden's path moving forward is going to be an easy one. And recently, I was actually a guest on CGTN's The Point with Liu Xing. I was asked this question: what is the greatest challenges for Joe Biden moving forward? I'm going to go ahead and play you this clip so you can see my answer.
I think that is basically the biggest lesson that we've learned from this election, is the fact that how divided our country is. I think for the Democrats, let me say, going into the election, this is what you saw both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, felt that if their side did not win, that this would mean the end of America. That it was a do or die situation, for both parties, and that's literally how everybody felt. That's, I think, why you've seen so many people, coming out to vote this year, and why there's been record-breaking numbers, for the voter turnout. Why so many people are passionate. I think, I come from a very, strong Republican base in Florida. That is where, I grew up in, and it was amazing, just the amount of fear that was being spread, and a lot of it is just not true. But a lot of people thinking, wow, if Joe Biden wins, America is going to become a socialist country. We're going to become a communist country. We're going to have all of these policies, from the Democrats that are going to be so far, different than what we're used to. So there was a lot of fear. I think that, this is going to be Joe Biden's greatest challenge. I mean, he's come out and said, I don't see blue states or red states. I see American states. I'm going to fight just as hard for the people that voted against me as the ones that voted for me. This is easy to say in a speech, but this is going to be his biggest challenge because, even if we look at how the United States government is controlled, the Republicans are going to maintain control of the Senate. They're essentially going to be, playing hardball. They're going to block, any policy that Biden's going to move forward. So it's going to be almost a stalemate in the United States government, as Biden tries to put forward these policies. And he's definitely going to get a lot of backlash from a lot of Americans that don't support him. So, I think this is a very difficult time for America. This is not going to be an easy presidency or transition for Joe Biden moving forward.
Now, as I mentioned in that clip, you can see that very much, Joe Biden is still going to have a lot of difficulty moving forward. The Republicans will control the Senate, but this is exactly how the United States Constitution was constructed. There is always a balance in power. No one president is going to have too much power in the United States, democratic system. But anyways, I wanted to share with you my thoughts, and I wanted to share with you that, I am optimistic for the future. I think that, many people have actually said, the United States and China will never get back to their previous relationship. The damage done by Donald Trump and the United States government is irreversible. We'll never go back to those glory days. That might be true. And I think that, Joe Biden and the United States government have a great opportunity here. I'm optimistic for the future. I know that it's not going to be an overnight change. I know that it's going to take a few years to do this change, but let's go ahead and, let's move forward. And I think all Americans, whether you supported Joe Biden or not, we need to, believe in this democratic process. We need to accept the result, and we need to get behind our president because he is now the president of the United States. I've always supported and respected the President of the United States because I believe that is your job as an American. So that is something that I'm going to do. I think the world is really, celebrating this victory by Joe Biden. I think many people are, around the world are collectively breathing a sigh of relief, knowing that the United States has somebody that is going to be more presidential, more diplomatic, and more responsible. I'm very excited for the future. And I just wanted to share my thoughts with you today. Now, everybody, as always, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it with me here on YouTube. And I also want to give a special shout out to those members of our Patreon community. They are actively involved in our great community where we simply chat about the channel, things moving forward. It's a great way to help this channel, continue to grow. If you're interested in being a member of our community, receiving insights into the channel, I invite you to click down in the link below. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for your continued support as we continue to gain subscribers, and hopefully we continue to build this bridge between the United States and China. Again, my name is Cyrus. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in next week's video.